Hello, and welcome to Mechanicsburg Mystery Presents a conversation with Sarah Ickes. Regular customers to the store and its events will also recognize Sarah as one of our employees, and she also is vital to getting this podcast online and in good shape. But she is also an author and an artist, and she has published 3 books so far in the Murial Robertson mystery series set in the Old West, 1 book in her Sybil Lawson series, and the first book in the Vectra Tillerman Adventures series, the first of which we'll be discussing today is Written Wings. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. It's so much fun to be here. It's different to be on the other side of the screen this time.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think this is like only your second time on camera as well, or giving an interview. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did one via phone one time, but this is my second time being on video. So I'm usually a shyer person. I did theater in high school, but I was always the background person. I was the one moving the sets in the
Oh,
back. So I wasn't really the person out front. So I'm not usually one for like being in the spotlight. So it's a little different.
yeah, I did that too in high school. I acted in musicals and things, but I was also a part of the set building and moving crew as well. And, they both have their pleasures. And I think this is connected with writing as well, because you can stand back there and build everything, and then you let somebody else go out there and
Hmm.
perform for you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about Written Wings, which is, you identified it on the title page, if I remember correctly here, and I'm not, so I'm going to go Greek mythology, fantasy, adventure, YA.
Yep.
And this is the impressions I got from it is a little bit of Rick Riordan and a little bit of Harry Potter and a lot of your world building, because you draw from a lot of inspiration. So the story briefly is about the Browning children, Monica and Dare, hunting their kidnapped older brother Trevor, who was working on a super secret project of some kind and haunted by their parents' death. And they find a lead to meet Vectra Tillerman, who, what is she exactly? Or without giving away obviously the plot, but when they encounter her, she is an interesting character. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, she definitely is very interesting. But you pretty pegged it really well on some of my different inspirations. So I do love fantasy. I grew up reading Percy Jackson books and all those other ones, and so that was one of my inspirations for it. But Vectra actually came from one time I was at a festival. I should go back and start with this. One time I was at a festival and someone had asked me, they go, "Are you her on the front cover of the book?" And I was like, well, the cheapest model you got is yourself. When it comes to art, that was one of the things we learned is a lot of artists, they do self-portraits not because of ego, but because they are the cheapest model that's around. And so if you want to learn facial features and doing persons, that you use a mirror, you learn off of yourself. And so I said, well, she partially is me, but her real inspiration was, and this is kind of weird, but I wanted to go to the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair where you get to dress up and be who anyone you want to be from medieval times and stuff. And I wanted my own character that no one else had created that I could dress up as. And so that was actually part of her inspiration. So it's a little different. And actually, today I'm wearing her hat. This is a hat I actually made. And one of the things you'll learn about her is everything she wears has symbolic meaning. So as you go through the storyline, I don't want to give away a lot of different things, but her necklaces have a special meaning. You'll learn later on that the one watch she has a special meaning. Someone gave it to her from France in a different time period. And one of the cool things I think about her is she's a character that slowly unravels. Like there's a lot of different layers to her past and what she's gone through. And so the kids essentially don't know, one, who she is, because I mean, this is someone they just met because they were told in a dream that they had to go and find her because they're desperate. They need to find their brother. He's their legal guardian. He's the only family they have left. And so they don't know who she is. They don't know if they can trust her because of various things that happen, like whose side is she really on? And then also is, how old is she? Which is a question you never ask a woman, by the way. But how old is she? Because of the way she speaks is a little different. She does not use contractions as much. She uses some older terminology and words, which is what love having fun with, is learning about older words. And so when went to create her character, I was like, oh, she has to be a modge podge of pretty much anything and everything because of how many different like lifetimes she has lived. And also, what's neat with her is I can make a book, and I'm not going to say in all different time periods because I don't want to give certain things away, but I can make a book in various different time periods and I can have her pop up in the book in different ones. So my worlds are actually interconnected in the sense that my characters will do like little cameos in the different stories. And with her, it's just so much fun because I can just have her pop up in like all different areas, which gives spoiler alert to some of the other ones.
Well, it's not going to be much of a spoiler because on your title page, you already have a crossover with Vectra and Murial Robertson in The Nation's Grief, which is going to be coming out later. So you kind of, the game is already given
Yeah,
away as well. But
yeah, a
that'll
little
be
bit.
very amusing, I'm sure.
But that's not the only one she's going to be in.
Yeah.
So there's going to be others.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really building an interconnected world. Like I said, sort of like the Harry Potter inspiration, although you don't really, I don't want to make them think that this is not Rick Riordan fan fiction. This is not even close to Harry Potter fan fiction. It's like you're taking a fantasy world, creating it fresh, because you make a list of who they encounter in the book, and there's a ghost of a Confederate soldier, there's someone called the debt collector, there's 12 objects, magic objects, and there's a whole backstory behind. Have you figured out all 12 objects yet, just out of curiosity? I love
Um,
thinking about what you have already have planned.
Most of them. I have most done, not all. I left some room for growth because I've learned before is you don't want to trap yourself in a corner. And I'm more of like a pantser where I plan it in my mind, but when I start writing, my characters do different things than what I had intentionally meant for them to do. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of go with the storyline, but yeah, so I have most of them planned, but not all because I want
Okay.
to leave room for some certain things. I actually have up to book 3 in Vectra, skeletoned out a bit. But like I said, I leave room for myself to, because in this book, there was a way it was going to go one way. And then as I was writing, I'm like, no, it has to go this way. No, this is better this way. And so I start doing that way. Or a lot of my inspiration comes from history. And I love looking up history on various things. Or if you get online and an article will pop up, sometimes it'll be like, hey, you know what? That'll actually solve my problem while I'm looking through it and saying, hey, it's a great artifact to put in there. That's a great fact. We can have Vectra do this, or we could have this happen. And so it kind of just I just go with the flow of my stories a bit.
So it sounds like, so when it comes to the world building, is it the story first or the world first? How did this even, how did Vectra just come about? I just, the origin of this.
Okay, so like I said, part of it was I wanted to have a character that I could be myself as. The other part is I really like steampunk stuff. I am not a hardcore steampunker though, so don't quiz me on everything on steampunk. But I do love the aesthetics as an artist. I love the various different things and the inventions and stuff, and I do love that time period. So when I started building her, I knew that I wanted to have an older sense to her clothing. So she wears kind of like a waterfall cut vest and everything else and stuff that where she can actually do action. She's not in like a tight skirt or anything. She is an action girl. And I love fantasy in the sense of like magical elements. So I knew that when I want to create her, I wanted to give her a power, but I did not want her to be a superhero. I did not want her to have like that invincible shield. Like there is an Achilles heel because she is in Greek mythology. So you got to have an Achilles heel.
Mm,
So when, yeah, I mean,
true.
you got to
Very
have that.
true.
Mhm. So when I did that, and I don't want to go too much into her power because there is something that comes up later on as to why she has this, and that it's actually sometimes more of a curse than a blessing, and why it is. So it's based off of the 4 elements, and so she has fire, and other people she knows who are trying to get her. And I don't want to reveal, like I said, sometimes it's very hard to talk about her because there is so much built in and so many secrets interladen that I don't want to ruin some surprises.
Oh,
But the
absolutely.
ones who are coming after her, they have their own elemental power. And so it starts coming down to as one's hunting for them all. And so that will actually become that'll come to a forehead in the third one, where we'll start working up this way, and then there'll be like a huge like battle scene and everything, which I'm just looking really forward to. I love writing the battle scenes. And
Hmm.
so in a way I almost have to write in red when I write them, battle scene coming up, and then continue on writing, because there's so much that happens in them that I have to like sit down and like really write it out. But yeah, so she has fire, so I knew I wanted to have that, and that actually works out really well, especially with the goddess that she still not really worships, but has a
Conflicted relationship with, if it's
yeah,
the right one I'm
say
thinking
that. Yes,
about.
there's a number of different. So she's not really in favor with the gods and goddesses. She kind of has a more modern attitude on certain things. But yeah, I just wanted to create a character who almost had like a Charlie Brown effect. Like everything she does, something just has to come up a little wrong, but she makes it work. So I don't know. It's just kind of like it she was just slowly building based on various different things, based on my love of Greek mythology and a lot of history that I've been learning over all different time periods. And what I really also work off of is mysteries that have not been solved yet from the past. So when I decided on where she was supposed to live, I was thinking, well, she's not going to be in a rural hotel. She's not going to be in a luxury area. That's just wrong.
Yeah.
So when I created her ship that she lives in, it's actually based off of two real ships that have very, I would want to say almost tragic histories, but I try to find a hope in that gloom. And so when I was creating her, with her ship, and I won't bore everyone with all the details, but the one ship, it was actually used to be a scientific vessel, and then it went into battle and everything. It used to be a private yacht that someone had put into service, I believe, for World War II. And I found a video of the ship. Someone had found it, and it was just desolate in this river, and it was just rotting out to the core. And they were actually on there looking over the engine and everything else. And I'm thinking, that would be a really nice, that would work out pretty well with some of that background. And then I was looking at a news article. So I guess in a way, the world building started first, but it develops as I go along as well. I don't really have a very good method. I just kind of, like I said, it just kind of speaks with me, and I kind of go with it.
Hmm.
But in I think it's off the coast of Australia, they had a video. There's a ship that trees grew on, and it's a whole floating island where these trees were just growing. A whole forest was growing on them, and it was an old battleship. And I was like, now that would be interesting too. And then I was looking up history in the sense of I needed an old name for something, and so I was looking through, and I wanted to include a little bit of the Civil War because that still is of a lot of interest. And I was looking through, and I found this old ironclad ship used to be called this one name. And I was like, I need a Greek name. I need a Greek name. And it was the Cyclops, the USS Cyclops. And I was like, well, that's perfect. And it was only this ironclad, and I have to verify the information because I only was able to find it on one source. But they said it was the USS Cyclops for like a month before they rechristened it as something else. And I was like, oh, that's even better because it's a very, very less known fact. And I found a USS Cyclops that was later on that was a sister. There were all these there was like four sisters in this battleship that was made, and they all had mysterious endings in the Bermuda Triangle. Um,
Uh,
one actually didn't make it there. It was actually fired on and by Japan, and it was sunk. But the
mhm.
other three all had mysterious endings in the Bermuda Triangle. And so I was able to find the schematics for the USS Cyclops online. So a lot of like the dimensions and different things like that are actual to the schematics and everything. So a lot of my research goes into it. And I think that's also why I love the story so much, is because I can include history from all different time periods. I can include all my research. I have a very eclectic books at home full of my research. But yeah, so her ship, everything about her is just like a Mod Podge. I try to keep ship names though different because a lot of people really died on those ships. So I wanted to pay honor to what they sacrificed and what they went through. So I do change the name of the ship. It's not the USS Cyclops in the book. But an interesting, really cool story is I was actually at the local library and I had just learned about the Cyclops. And there's like a free shelf where people donate books and stuff. And I was looking through it and I saw this one smaller mass market and it was underneath this other book. And I was like, oh, I wonder what this one is. It looks interesting. And I picked it up and it said Mysteries of the Ocean.
Mhm.
And I flipped it open to where my thumb was, and I was literally on the USS Cyclops page. My thumb had hit on that exact page, and I was like, okay, we are including you. You were meant to be in the story. That was a little freaky. So I was like, all right,
Clearly, the universe was saying you need to put that in. You need to
yeah.
use that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that's just some of the very interesting tidbits I have when I look it up.
yeah. And one of the things that struck me about Vectra is that she is kind of going on a journey of her own because she has a particular attitude towards her role in the book. And that has caused problems in the past. And of course, kind of continues to cause problems. She has to deal with the ramifications of it. So you have some emotion going on with her.
Yeah.
Again, without trying to give the game away, she is an interesting character in her own right. Yeah. So we've talked about that, and we've talked about the crossover, Nation's Grief.
Mhm.
Is that written, or is there a plan for that? Is that just like a year or so from now, and not don't want to go into detail about that either?
Oh no, I can go into detail, but it's not done yet.
Okay, well
It's one of those things where I have all these different stories that are like half done, and
mhm,
like just has a way of getting in the way, and so it's not fully done. But Nation's Grief is actually going to deal a little bit more with Abraham Lincoln, and it is going to be a tie over. So it's going to go in between book 2 and 3 of Murial Robertson.
right.
And so in that, there's a train ride she takes from, and I don't want to give it all away from Muriel, but there's a train ride she takes from one side of the country to the other. She's traveling home, and she ends up being a little late on the train. And so I was thinking this could be a really good story about this. So it's actually going to come down to the only photo that was ever taken of President Lincoln in his coffin because he was not supposed to be photographed. His wife did not want that, and a photographer was able to sneak in and take a single photograph. And there for a while, it was not found. It was lost. And so then they had refound it. And I think it was in the early 2000s, I think they refound it. I could be
Mhm.
on that date, but they refound it. And there was, someone had had it stuffed in a desk. And when I was looking up the research of who it was and where it was going, it fits like right along my train route. And I was like, okay, I have to deal
Have
with
to
this.
work something in,
Oh
work
yeah,
that
so
in.
it's going to be a murder on a train, or something's going to happen on a train. But it's going to be a murder on a train, and there's going to be all these suspects. And no, I am not doing an Agatha Christie. She is. I will not do that. Mine is different, different style. Um, but no, there's actually going to be a little bit of Japan history in there. You're going to have bonsai trees and so forth. So that's going to be very interesting in the sense of that when I was doing Vectra, there's a number of Japanese history that's alluded to, like the tea kettle that she has, which is actually a kettle and a pot because it does multiple different things. It's a special design that they have. That the more the dots that are on the pot, actually the higher the value is. And going back to cast iron for the teapots and kettles, because actually, whenever you boil the water in it, you'll get the iron from the cast iron in the water, and it actually has a slight subtle taste difference. So when I was doing all the research for that, I love swords, like samurai swords, anything with that, like Damascus steel and stuff. So when I was doing all the research for that, I found about the bonsai trees and was learning up more history. And I found a garden center book, essentially like a catalog from back that time period where you could buy bonsai trees and stuff. Because at that point, when you get into the plant hunters and everything else that is in Vectra, I was using that research into this book as well. So that'll be a nice merging of the two. And there's actually a clue in Vectra as to something that happens in Muriel. So there is, like I said, there is a lot of interconnecting secrets, but I try to do it in a way that if you read one series, it's not going to, you don't have to read the other series to understand what's going on, but it's just that little extra like, aha, once you get there. So yeah, so it's just that one is going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of different elements to it. I'm actually doing a lot of work with dictionaries in that one too. There's going to be something about dictionaries. and a lot of also the trains. So if anyone loves trains, my second Muriel, Angle for Revenge, takes place mostly on a train. And so a lot of people like that with the Pullman cars and everything. So I'll be putting some more of that in there as well.
Okay, so let us jump to Murial Robertson, because you've written several books, 3 books right
Yeah,
now,
three so far that are published.
yeah, so far there. I have to distinguish that because yes, you do have announcements of future books in there. So tell us a little bit about Muriel and the mystery series as a whole, what that involves.
So Muriel is takes place in the 1880s, which was a time period when we were having like the Statue of Lady Liberty was just coming over. You have a lot of different things that happen. So in 1885 and 6 is when she starts coming about. I'm thinking about doing a prequel at some point, so I have to see how far in advance I want to do that. But the 1880s is where it's mainly structured. And so in Britain times, that's called the Victorian time period. A lot of times it's called Gilded during certain time periods in American. I still like to say Victorian because more people know that one. But so essentially, in the first one, she goes out to the Midwest. She goes out to the territory of Arizona, and her father is a senator, and he's going around trying to campaign for them to become a state because they're not a state yet, and someone is after his life. And so she is scouting the route ahead, which is very unusual for a woman of her time period. They did have like the first Pinkerton detectives were around that time period that were women, but it was very, very minimal in like who they were and what all they did and stuff. You even actually had some female policemen around that time period, but essentially, yeah, they were like the secretaries and in the side. They didn't do a whole lot else, but they at least were still there. So she's kind of in the forerunner of that time period. And when she gets there, a lot of different things happen. And so it's the whole thing is, can she get her father to California alive? And then what is out there in California waiting for them too? Because there's another tidbit in there as well. So in the book, you'll meet her cousin Walter, who is the bank manager out there in Arizona, and then you'll also meet Jack, who is the sheriff, who she knows from back in Philadelphia. So both of them are from there. So she has a lot of home ties there. And so she does do a little bit of soul searching as to what she wants to do in life. Something drastic happens and it really changes her life into the second book. And so when she comes home, her family dynamics are really different. And her mother decides that she wants to go off and do something, which creates this other adventure on a train for them. And so then they find out is who do they trust? It comes to a point where someone is stalking them, and she doesn't know if it's from happened in Arizona, if that's who's coming after them, or is it someone else, or is it a close friend of theirs? So there's a lot of trust issues that come up. So in a way, I try to have it where she doesn't even know who to trust. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to try to figure it out. Then in the third one, there is an underlying story in all of my first and two that comes to a head in the third one, where someone is actually after it goes to like a government conspiracy in a way that gets uncovered. And I don't want to reveal too much, but she ends up becoming a fugitive a little bit from the law. She gets to eat stolen food. She's jumping from a train. I mean, she's doing anything and everything that she never thought she would do.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, a lot of my characters, they're not superheroes. They're not like, skilled in that sense. But I do include a lot of the history and the fact of that after what happened in the first book and her life has changed, what all she learns, what all she does. She is more of a working girl, even though she grew up a senator's daughter because her father was not very well with money. So the family was trying to keep up appearances, but they couldn't do for all of it. So she's more of a get her hands dirty. And so in that one, a lot of research, a lot of history in that one. So I even have a book on just lanterns so that I could get the lanterns right and stuff because I mean there's so many different ones out there and different types of oils and everything. So when I try to do that, oh, and cinnamon. I will give you a hint. Cinnamon in the third one is a
Yeah.
very interesting something happens with it. You don't really think of it because it's just a spice we normally put in like apple pies and different things like that in the kitchen, but it actually comes up as a very helpful clue slash hint in the third one.
Okay, so now then I might have gotten it wrong. Is number 2 and 3, are they in the east or in the west? Because I went on the first book.
Yeah, no, my first one, she travels a lot. So my
Oh,
first
okay.
one is in main is solely in Arizona, the
In the,
first one. At the very end, she may or may not get to California. You have to find out by reading it.
right.
The second one happens in Pennsylvania, but she makes her way out to the west, hopefully. Again, maybe or maybe not. She might make it out to California.
Hmm.
So she'll be in a couple different states in that one. And then in the third one, she is in Pennsylvania, New York, and then I think yeah, she just stays mainly in Pennsylvania, but it's up in northern Pennsylvania in the coal mining regions. And
Uh,
anyone who loves like Irish stuff, I have a lot more of the Irish heritage, more culture of the Ireland people in that one and stuff, and the Catholics versus Protestant Irish and different things like that. So yeah, so that one is really fun. And then I have the 2.5 is coming out, which is the one that you were talking about, the Nation's Grief. That one
mhm.
will be happening around Michigan area. Minnesota into Michigan is where I'm planning it currently. But like I said, with my role building, my world building, it sometimes happens as I'm going along. And then there'll be a fourth one coming out that'll be an ancient poison, and that one will be taking place in Michigan. And that one will actually be talking about like different vegetables of the time period and the big controversy over milk.
Mhm.
Because
That
milk
you're
has a
going
very
all over the place
controversial.
here. You're just all over the Eastern United States and
Mhm.
all kinds of different subjects as well. So, where does the Sybil Lawson series? I think there's one book in that.
There's
Where
one
does that fit
currently.
in?
There's a second one coming out. It will be here for the Cozy Mystery Fest that the Mechanics for Mystery Bookshop is hosting. It was supposed to be out a little bit ago. Shh, don't tell anybody. But it was supposed to be. Like I said, life really stepped in the way this year,
Oh
and
boy.
but yeah, I'm pushing through though. It is getting done. It just something was not clicking right, and I did not want to. I strive for quality in all the stuff that I do, so I did not want to push it and then have a subpar storyline. So
Hmm.
I will be getting that done here. It will be there. And so Sybil Lawson, she's actually modern day. And so I actually find modern day more difficult to write because I'm so much into history with my other ones, and it helps me build my world. And with modern day, I just look around and it's all around me. So I do find it a little bit more difficult. Nothing against it. It's just I just find it personally a little bit more difficult. Although clothing in historical time period is like my Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Clothing and sometimes furniture, depending on what I'm looking at, those are my Achilles heel. They take me forever, is my worst part, or that takes me the longest, I should say. But with Sybil Lawson, she is now that one's a cozy mystery. So they were talking about different genres here, subgenres as well here. So
Yeah.
she is a cozy mystery, but she follow more of a traditional line. Here at the bookshop, we usually say there's like a scale of 1 to 10 on cozies. Agatha Christie's more of a traditional, but you could also have one where his eyes are like buttery chocolate colored in this and this, where we call it a little bit more fluffier.
Hmm.
So mine's more of a traditional style. And so that one takes place in Pennsylvania. It's in a fictional town called Robbers Cove. And the fun thing about that, that'll be slowly, and this will be like a spoiler alert, but not, is that throughout the series, you'll find out more and more about the founding of the town because they were actually robbers and thieves. So it's kind of like hole in the wall, but Pennsylvania style. And so they can't spell because they're thieves and stuff from back then. And so they're a little bit more illiterate. So it's robbers is Robbyr. Was
Hmm.
robber. So they have a little bit of fun with that in the town. And so that'll actually have 1920 references to it. So you have like prohibition and some of like the alcohol rum runners and different things like that. So like the woods are perfect for hidden stills and everything. So some of the references will be coming up in that, but it's also Christmas themed. So I do have a lot of like there's hot cocoa, you got Christmas music. It is Christmasified
Hmm.
in there. But so in that one, the choir director is found dead in the snow, and they think it's a rogue reindeer because they find sleigh tracks around her and reindeer tracks and everything. So the newspapers pick it up and say grandma got ran over by a reindeer and have some fun with the headlines.
Yep.
And so of course the family is not that thrilled over it. So Sybil has to end up finding who the killer is because her friend becomes under suspicion based on her past that Sybil didn't even know she had. So her friend's from Chicago, and something happened back there that she didn't even know about until her friend actually says something. And so then she gets kind of drug into it. And in that sense is her one of her relatives we used to be in the police department and different things like that. So it's not the traditional sense that she's not dating the cop. It's a like a relative standpoint. So I do switch it up a bit. But I'm not going to say all of it because like I said that gives away a little bit too. But yeah, so that one was really fun with the Christmas sense. And so in that one, you have multiple different things. I try to make my stories very action packed, but still realistic. Like she's not going to be jumping out of a helicopter, like going cowabunga with a parachute out and all this other stuff. I did try to make it a little bit more realistic, but I mean, you have like robberies and you do have like break-ins and different things like that that happen that she has to stake out a little bit and so forth. And she works in an arts and crafts store in that one. She is a part-time manager because someone said, how can she do all this if she's a manager? I said she's a part-time manager for one.
Right.
And she's they live in a converted railroad house. And so like I was saying about the interconnected world is she ends up finding a drawing with the initials MR in the drawing and stuff. And so if anyone knows about my Murial Robertson, hint hint, she's gonna discover that there was a connection to Muriel at some point.
Mm.
But I'm not gonna get into too much of that because that's a future book of Muriel. But yeah, so like I said, they're all interconnected and all interspersed, but you don't have to read one to understand the other. It's kind of like a, oh hey, look at that if you read them all.
Okay. Well, when I visited your website, and it's worth going there because you do have a few backstories behind your books. You have word definitions for some of your books, but you also have a lot of artwork that you've done. You're very creative and you're very productive as well, which I'm envious of you.
Oh,
Because
thanks.
you publish your books. I write books and I don't publish them, but you have photography, mixed media, and digital and drawings as well. Do you have a favorite among them that you prefer? Or
Oh, sometimes it's hard to pinpoint just one because I love doing all different mediums. If I do something for too long, I get bored.
sure.
um, so I would say that pastel drawings are actually my favorite. A lot of people call them pastel paintings, but a painting to me is with paint, not with pastels, but it a lot of times is called a pastel painting. But I prefer them, but I'm not I do them differently than others. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, it's just my style
Yeah.
is I do cleaner lines. A lot of times with pastels, they're very how do I want to say it's like brushed lines, they're very soft. And I like to do mine as hard, clean lines. And so that was something that in college, because I did go for a degree in art. Originally, it was supposed to be in fine arts, but then the college switched degrees around while I was there.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh no. So they said, well, you either go this course and you have like one more class to do, or you go to this one and you still have 20 more classes to take. And I'm like, I've already been here 4 years. I'm going to take the one class and be done with it. So, because some people had asked if I was going to go into graphic design, and I was like, I looked and I said, yeah, there's just too many classes. I'd have to overlap and everything for it. But I do enjoy doing graphics on the computer and stuff like that. So, like a lot of the imagery you'll find on my website, I do a lot of my own promos. I do a lot of my own pictures, different things. Like all of my author photos are actually myself taking them and so forth. So I do a lot of it myself, but I would say that probably pastel drawing would be one of my favorites. I do enjoy photography a lot
Mm.
in the sense of that once I take the photo, all I have to do is do some online manipulation. And by manipulation, I mean making the photo stronger. I do not use any artificial intelligence for anything. I am a opponent for pure art imagination from the source. And my one teacher, she says you always take the best photo you can to make it better. You don't take a bad photo and try to make it better. So,
Yeah.
so that's what I really work with. I love taking photos of nature. There was a really awesome thunderstorm out by my house the one night that was coming. We have a nice view of the mountains, and the thunderstorm was rolling across, and I was actually able to get shots of lightning. That was a triangle in the clouds and stuff. That was actually came up purple in my camera
Yeah.
everything. So I love to take pictures of that sort of thing. The one I took a picture of was actually of our oven. It was after we did a whole bunch of baking that day. You know how like it gets a little grungy in there sometimes after baking. And so before we went to clean it, I was like, wait. And I took a picture and and everyone seems to love the photo. And my mom's like, great, that's our oven. I was like, well, hey, it was from baking and we were cleaning it, I swear. But I love mannequins, like the little wooden mannequins that people start to learn how to draw proportions off of, which
Yeah.
actually is not that proportionate. If you actually look at them, they're actually a little disproportionate. But
Yeah.
I love those little guys, and I love challenging myself into creating them so that you get the sense of what they're feeling without any facial expressions. So I try to challenge it by creating the surrounding around them. So I love fantasy kind of style. But yeah, pastel drawings and pretty much just drawing in general. I love to take text or like textured background paper that I sometimes do myself, or other times it's scrapbooking paper, so it's acid free, and then I draw on top of it. Or
Hmm.
I've actually taken, if you ever get a proof of a book and there's issues or something in it and you mark it up, my mom had a book that she had proofed, and her markings were in there. I actually took the pages out of there and drew my mannequins on them and stuff, and then cut them out, and that's how you get the mannequins just want to have fun. It's actually on my mom's pages of her book that she wrote. so so I love to include our own writings and different things like that in there. Mixed media would probably be it. So I did do ceramics and stuff, but I don't have a kiln.
Yeah.
They're very expensive to put
Yeah.
in. And I don't have any real good connections to anyone who has a kiln. So I do love sculpture, but if anything, it's more like an air dry clay or an oven baked clay or something. I pretty much did almost anything. I even did jewelry making. I even have a silver. I actually made a sterling silver necklace. The way you did with jewelry making with the wax melt, the wax loss method, and everything. So a lot of some of the stuff that's in my books is stuff that I've also had some experience with. So yeah, I've done a wide range of things. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint, but I guess drawing would be the shorter answer. I know I
Yeah.
kind of went around a long about way there, but it would be drawing would probably be the shorter answer.
Well, how else can you figure out what your answer is if you don't go through, if you don't talk about it?
Yeah.
Um, Now, because you've got a number of books out now, and you've plotted a number of books, and you've got more coming out now. Is there anything you've learned that you wish you knew when you started?
Um, I will say that I wish I would have spent a little more into my programs in the beginning. I kind of went with a basic program when I first started going into it, and my formatting was just really, really not as good as what I have learned it to be. So I've tried to give myself one more time to learn things. Hence why I'm a little behind in my books. I was very ambitious. I shot for the stars and I have missed the moon. I'm getting there though. But
So
I
you're
would say,
talking about book formatting then, right?
yeah, book formatting. It took me a lot longer to learn. It also took me a lot longer to learn systems. Yes,
Yeah. It's
that took
very
a while.
it's a very complex cover there. It's not something you do,
Yeah,
with.
no, all of those elements are drawn. I start with a sketch first, and then I put it into my tablet, and then I draw all of that stuff by hand and everything. So all of that stuff is drawn. The illustrations inside are mine. I do all of the formatting and everything else. So it's a long process, and I kind of underestimate sometimes how long it'll take. And
Yeah.
so to get my formatting down pat in the newer system I had, I pretty much every single night for a whole week, I was learning different videos and studying them before I went to sleep so that I had a regiment on learning it. So by the time I got to get there, I had a fundamental knowledge of different things. And then, of course, the company always seems to change stuff when you get your updates and you have
Hmm.
to relearn where all the buttons are and stuff like that. So, but I would say that, yeah, it definitely took to my timing. It takes a lot longer than you sometimes think. I know some people they're like, when's the next book coming out? And it's like, well, hold on there. This one just came out.
Hmm.
It takes a lot longer than I think some people realize. And especially when you're doing your artwork and everything. I love doing the artwork though for my covers. Once I get it down pat on how it's supposed to be, I can roll with it. I can go. It's getting there to that point though of knowing where I need to be. Because a lot of the stuff I do is self-taught. I did learn some of the programming in college for like the artwork and everything. But some of the other stuff, yeah, is all like self-taught. So while I do like that in the sense of now I know where I made my mistake, I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah.
It just takes a little bit of time. So I would say that, yeah, it probably is just allowing myself a little bit more time on stuff would probably be one of the things, and not to rush it as much, to go about the right way. I know in my first one, I was trying to get some things done and I wanted to get it done by a certain time frame, and I made a couple shortcuts and I learned the hard way not to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just getting my process. Now that I have my process down, it's a lot easier. It's just, yeah, I would say that's probably it.
Well, that's the thing I had learned when I was at the newspaper writing headlines, and that you have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. You don't stop with the first idea. You don't stop with the first draft. You don't stop with the first illustration, because really what you're doing is getting it down in your mind where things go, and then you have to do it again to refine it. And then you look at it, because I can't see what I'm trying to do in my head. It has to be down on the paper, whether it is a scene, like I said, a headline, a map. I've been drawing maps because we're going to be publishing the second volume in the Dorothy Sayers series, Clouds of Witness.
Oh wow, cool.
And we're doing, it's not just redrawing this map, which I did, which was already done, but I'm adding the grounds for Riddlesdale Manor. And this is like after one sketch and at least two drafts, and putting it before my daughter, who actually is an artist as well. And she has a very good eye, and she can say, well, do this, do this, do this, do this. And I'm trying to do research as to what the grounds might have looked like, because from the descriptions. But the point, though, is that it does take several tries to get, you'll get something better, but you really do have to put in the effort. And that's the big thing. That's my answer for it, is that you can't make it one and done. There are very few people who could do that.
Yeah.
Conan Doyle wrote his Sherlock Holmes stories almost one draft, but it was a lot of thought, slowly writing. One of those early proponents of slow writing before it became a thing, because he would sit there and think about it. And
Mm-hmm.
even then, he wrote some bow wows too. Um, so it looks like we are 40 minutes in.
Okay.
So I think we got everything we need. Is there anything else you want to say? I know you're going to be at Cozy Fet, and that's going to be October 11th. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was asking a question. I went, wait a minute. I got to tell people about Cozy Fet, because it's October 11th. Visit the website for the Mechanicsburg Mystery Bookshop at mysterybooksonline.com. Tickets are $6 online, and they're, I think, $12 at the door. So if you want to save money, buy them online. You'll get a swag bag with at least one book in it. Do you know?
The swag bag will have various different things in there from partners, from local businesses and different things like that. I don't know if we'll be having ARCs in this one or not. We haven't
Okay.
fully decided on it. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, but I know there will be swag in there regardless.
Okay. And refreshments. So, it's only $6. But come and meet Sarah and 11 other authors. Visit the website. You'll know
Yeah,
their
we'll have
names
a
as
whole bunch of other authors there, and it's like all different subgenres will be there. So it'll be really cool. We try to provide a variety of books from historical to modern to fantasy. So that way there's something for everybody there.
yeah. Yep. Well, Sarah, thank you for stopping by and stepping in front of the camera this time. Really appreciate it. It's really good to hear about your books and your process. And I'm looking forward to seeing more come out in the years to come.
All right. Well,
To
thank you. It
see
was
you
really
build
awesome to be here.
the Ickes verse, which
Yeah,
is what you're doing.
it is, yeah, essentially, yeah. It's gonna be wide if I get my books all done here. I have a women's fiction coming out. I have some other ones that'll be coming in fantasy. I'll have another historical fiction that'll also have some fantasy in it and stuff like that. So, and then I have one I'm hoping I can get done this back in like Revolutionary War times, because that's more my jam, is Revolutionary War for some of that stuff too. So yeah, there's a lot of different ones. I would say probably the one thing is that Oh, and I do have a novella coming up. I almost forgot. I was just typing on it last night. I do have a novella coming out that'll take place in Carlisle, in the year 1843. And that's actually going to be happening on
Wow.
May 27th, 1843. It was a specific one, a specific day, because the balloonist John Wise, who's actually from Lancaster area, he was doing a balloon ascension that day. And so I just did a program at the bookshop on ballooning in the Civil War and how we had a ballooning corps. And
Hmm.
without going into all of it, it was very instrumental in various things, but essentially is they didn't get a whole lot of action on some of the fronts. But it's a very fascinating history to look into. And so there is a book called Through the Air that John Wise had written and accumulated all these different viewpoints of his different ascensions and different history on ballooning. And so that was published in like 18 in the 1870s. And so I have a copy of it on my computer, and I was going through it and everything. So there's going to be a bank robbery that happens that day in Carlisle and stuff. So some stuff will be real, like like there will be the streets are still there, some of the places are still there. There's just been changed around and stuff. So they'll have some cameos from some real people, but mainly they're fictional in regards to what that happened. But no, John Wise will be in it with his balloon ascension and everything that happens. And then a bank robbery occurs that ends up leading into something else. And so that'll be a novella with a completely different set of cast members, but there'll be a cameo in from one of my other characters, possibly. I'll have to
Hmm.
think about it. But yeah, so that one will be coming out. And then yeah, I have Revolutionary War history and stuff that'll be coming out. So when you read my books, there may be words, like you said, on my website I have word definitions
Yeah.
because of the time period it's in. I really like to use slang words and different things from back then. So I actually have the Dictionary of Americanisms from 1848 and the Dictionary of Americanisms from 1873. I think there was multiple different editions. I have both of them on my computer because they're like 800 pages long. So
They're
if I
big.
printed them off, I would
I've
have a whole
collected those. Yeah.
yeah, so like I have those that and they're in PDFs that I can like help search for my word definitions that'll actually be slang from that time period. So I
Yeah.
don't bog my story down with it, because if I did, no one would understand what was going on with some of the terminology. And then others, you might be surprised in how much our language today is a lot like what they spoke back then, in the sense of like everyone thinks refrigerator came about like later on. It used to be called an ice box.
Yeah.
It was actually called refrigerator back in the 1870s and 80s, and not everyone knows that. So my one beta reader, he said they don't say refrigerator back then. But I'm sorry to tell you, they did. I don't know when it got switched to icebox. Some people were looking at me and said I honestly don't know. But it was called refrigerator back then. It actually goes back to the 1500s is the word refrigerator. If you look off of like I think it's Webster Dictionary that says that. They
Mhm.
give some origins of the words, but it's stuff like that that I put in my books. In my one, I spell it the way they used to. So if there might be a spelling mistake, and maybe that it's just that's how they spelled it back then, because like thunderstorm was hyphenated, and sometimes courthouse was two separate, it was hyphenated, and like different things like that. So some of my terms in there are on the older side. So that's why I do like to give a dictionary definition on my website, and I cite the book and everything else. Um, so I also usually give out bookmarks with my books that do give some of that, but so for people who don't like to do on the computer as much. But yeah, so I did want to give that as like a warning. If you do find older words and stuff like that, they may be spelled a little different or something. It's to pay homage to the people who really lived back then.
Yeah. And it's intentional. So,
Yes.
just really just relax. Um, all right. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for showing up. We really appreciate talking with you. And for all the readers out there, this is Bill Peschel for Mechanicsburg Mystery Presents, thanking you for showing up. And remember, I hope that your favorite book is the one you're reading right now. Thank you, and bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Mechanicsburg Mystery Presents is sponsored by the Mechanicsburg Mystery Bookshop in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. To learn more about the store, visit the website at www.mysterybooksonline.com. And thank you for listening.